You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 274. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, author of How to Get On Podcasts, the podcast matchmaker, and CEO and founder of the MLG Collective. I'm excited to share the stories and life lessons of changemakers and authors with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today, we're talking about a bit of the history of our country, the United States, in particular, the Empire State Building and the Great Depression, because I have author Gemma Tizzard, whose book, Grace and the Empire State, is out today. It is historical fiction, and it is so good. I wish that all of our history facts and stories were told in a way that were this entertaining, and it makes you want to learn more. And so I feel that this was a total gift that Gemma gave to us, and I'm sharing why in our conversation. She is an absolute treat. She's from the UK, and we had a great conversation with how she researched this book and how long it took her to write it. You're in for a big surprise. Hi, Gemma.
Hi.
I'm so you have to say more than hi so everybody can hear your adorable accent.
Oh, thank you.
Can you introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Sure. I'm Gemma Tizzard, and I am the author of Grace of the Empire State, which is a historical fiction novel which is out on January 28th. It's set in New York in 1930, and it's about a young woman who's thrown into like an extraordinary circumstance where she has to take her twin brother's place working on the construction of the Empire State Building to save their family. And it's a book that I've been working on for many years, so I'm really excited for it to finally be heading out into the world for people to read and meet Grace.
And today this is going live on your pub day. So congratulations. Today
Amazing.
is pub day. We are pretending today is pub day so everyone can go out and buy it today.
Yeah, there you go. Now you can really go and read it.
It was so good. I've read some historical fiction, but I wouldn't say that's like the genre that I reach for all the time. And yet, having been to the Empire State Building, I love New York. And then to read this, my stomach was in knots, and thinking of how they're going up on this steel, they're building it. It was incredible. So I want to first know, what kind of research did you do to get it, and how accurate was this book?
And so much research, honestly. I researched it for years before I even started writing anything. So I think I've read maybe 10 different books about the construction of the Empire State Building alone. Because you kind of, I guess, with the research itself, if you think about the construction of a building, if you look at your book that way, that's the foundations of your book, and it needs to be strong to build on. So I needed to do the research. I needed to understand, if you're going to write a book that's about constructing the Empire State Building, you need to know how it's done. So I had to read a lot of books. I watched any documentaries I could find. And when you start hearing the same thing 4 or 5 times, then you can be fairly confident that that is how it happened and that is what they did. So I kind of did all of that for probably about 3 years, really, just making notes and understanding it so that I felt like I could do the job, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't, because I'm terrified of heights, but I felt like I could if I had to. If someone said to me, how did they do it? I knew the process. I knew how it would all work, how everything fit together. Huge amount of things that didn't even make it into the book, just so that I could make it feel as real as possible.
And what drew you to this time period and to the Empire State Building? Because obviously anybody who's listening can tell you're not from New York.
I'm not. I've actually only been to New York once.
I love this.
It was about a decade ago. So, and I did go to the Empire State Building, but that was way before the book was written. But yeah, I have a degree in American Studies. That's what I did at university. And we did a lot of history, and we did a lot of learning about the Great Depression. And this was obviously a few years ago. I think things have probably moved on a little bit, but it was very male focused, everything that we were learning about. And I just kept thinking, like, where were the women? What were they doing? And so I tried to play with that a little bit and thought of something that would be really male focused, construction, and then what was being built at that time period. And when I found out that the Empire State Building was built in like 1930, it all just kind of came together perfectly. It was the right time period, it was the right building. I knew that there would be the possibility to find out about it. You know, it's one of the most iconic buildings in the world. I knew that other people, it would have captured other people's attention before me. So I knew that I would be able to do that research and find out how it happened. And I thought, how do I get a woman up there? That was the question. I really
I
wanted to
love
do
it.
that.
I love it. It was so entertaining. And the fact that it is historical fiction, that you kind of feel like you're getting smart as you're reading it.
That's great.
You get to have that indulgence of, I'm going to go read, my novel. Oh, but I'm learning at the same time about history. And so, yes, it's like a school book that we really should have more of.
No, that's great to hear. I mean, I hope that, I mean, there's going to be people who know far more about it than me. So I hope that I'm not going to get a lot of letters of people going, you've got this wrong, you've got this wrong. I did my very best to make it as accurate as possible. Obviously, you want the story to be exciting, so you kind of take a few liberties here and there. But generally, the actual process of how they built the building is correct as far as I know, as far as I could get it, as close as possible.
I loved, and I think I said this in one of the posts I did about the book, was that this is really a badass heroine. And yet all the women that are in your story are all badasses. They're all strong women who are doing whatever it takes, not just to get themselves ahead, but to truly get their families ahead. And so I loved it. Talk to me more about that and how you made sure that every woman in this book is just an ass kicker.
I'm really glad you said that. That was kind of the plan. I thought, it was such a difficult time for so many people. And I think, something that resonates, I think, still today is that women do a lot of unnoticed work, a lot of emotional labor, a lot of like keeping a house and family together. But they also, had to go out and work and earn money, and they didn't have as many opportunities to do that. So I wanted to reflect all the different ways that women would have been living their lives then. So, the choices they had to make, marrying for money rather than love, or, making difficult decisions because they had to earn money. And that's really what Grace is doing. Grace doesn't really want to go up and work as a riveter. That's
Nobody
not a
does.
dream
The
of
men
hers.
didn't even want to.
Exactly. It was a question of like, what was she willing to do? The sacrifices that she would make for the people that she loved, and she would do it for them and to keep them safe and to keep her younger sister with a roof over her head. So, yeah, it was a lot of, what were these women willing to do? And the answer was whatever it takes.
And it showed through, because there's some scary moments in the book that we don't know if Grace is going to make it or not. And that's all we're going to say about it, because you have to go buy the book to find out. But there are moments where there's a lot that you're going, oh, what's going to happen to this character? And, will they pull through here? And there's a lot of wondering and suspense that truly did happen. It's not a far-fetched book by any means, because this is what people went through.
Yeah, people were really, it was desperate times, and, not everybody made it. I think, not just women, like everybody, there were a lot of casualties at the time. It was tough for everybody. And so, yeah, I think it had to make it realistic. And is everybody going to make it through, and for it to be a realistic story, maybe not.
What's drawn you to American studies? I'm
I think
curious.
Wow. I think it was when I was off to university, I was tempted to do English. Obviously, I'm a writer. I love reading. I love writing. But the syllabus was a lot of things I'd already covered at school. And I wanted to learn something different. And American studies was such like a broad subject. You could learn about history and politics and literature of America. And that's something that we didn't learn at school. Like, we didn't know. And I was like, America has such a big influence on the whole world, and everything that we kind of consume. And so I just wanted to know more. It was more about just like, I just hungry for knowledge. I love facts. I wanted to understand and learn about things I didn't know. And America is such an interesting country because your history is like not that long,
Yeah.
compared to like us in the UK, where you just like it would be impossible to kind of hold it all in your head. You can kind of really track America's history, like the founding of the country through, and how quickly everything changed, and my particular interest is like the 20th century and how fast everything accelerated and people's lives changed. And I just found it really fascinating, and I still do. So that's where a lot of my writing kind of takes me.
Especially since we seem to be reversing backwards anyway. Um, yeah, we're going to relive history so you can just write it in real time, apparently.
I mean,
Hopefully
there's
not.
some real kind of things there, like with the book. I mean, it's nearly 100 years ago that I was writing about, but things still like resonate, don't they? Today, there are things in that book that we haven't moved that far forward on some of those things.
Yeah, one that is sticking out to me right now is that waiting to, do we bring the child to the hospital because it's so expensive, or do we try to just nurse her back to health at home?
Yeah,
Those are things that are happening today as we see. I mean, it's very present
yeah,
today.
it's really tough decisions, and people are struggling financially, and like there are difficult decisions to be made, and people are having to have 3, 4 jobs, and those sort of things are still happening now.
What is it? I want to know, what else do you do? Give us the Gemma, the human being story, because I know you have a job outside
Mm,
of writing because you've just come home from it. And I'm like,
yes.
I want to stalk you more and get to know you more. What is it that you do outside of writing?
So I'm a marketing manager, and I work in a shopping centre, so a shopping mall. So I'm responsible for all of sort of like the events that happen. So Christmas events, Easter events, things that bring in families and kids, and just making sure that people know we've got new stores opening, and like lots of really like fun, interesting stuff. So that's what I do during the day, and then I come home and write in the evenings.
So now you need an event just for your book at
I
the
mean,
shopping mall,
maybe.
because everyone needs to know, what is this like for you since you're in the UK? The book is coming out in America. What is that like? Because I've interviewed Emma Gray, who's in Australia, and she's had both, a release will go in Australia and then the release is here and she comes over here. What is that like for you? Especially because we just talked about you having this job and it's coinciding with the launch.
It is, yeah. So my book's out at the same time in the UK and America. So I'm doing kind of both at once, and it's very surreal, I guess, to know that even though the book is set in America and it's about America, to know that there's interest in America. When I got the deal in America was such a huge moment for me as like a debut kind of British writer. You don't necessarily expect that that's going to happen, and then it's so exciting, but it feels like it's happening to someone else. To be honest, it hasn't quite sunk in yet that this is all real, and that there's going to be people who can walk into a store and buy the book. It's still a very strange experience.
I love it. You're going to have to get used to it. Uh, so you got the deal in the UK before the US happened?
Yes, yeah. So my first deal was in Germany, and then I got my UK deal, and then my the US deal followed that. So yeah, it was like three like amazing moments, all quite close together within a couple of months. But yeah, it's very exciting.
That's very exciting. The phone just keeps ringing with additional deals. Yes, please. So and how long did it take you? You said that you did the research for like 3 years to do this book.
Yeah.
How long was the total writing?
This people will always find this crazy, but I wrote the actual book, the first draft, in 6 weeks. Um,
That makes
because
up for the 3 years of research.
exactly, and that's why I do it. So I want to be particularly with historical fiction, because otherwise you're stopping every 2 minutes, because you can't write anything without checking. It's like if I was writing the morning routine of a contemporary woman, like I could do that because it's probably pretty similar to mine. But if we're talking about 1930, you've got a handful of questions you need to answer to even get someone out of the door. Like, would they have had a bathroom, or would it have been shared? What food would they have had, because they don't have a refrigerator? What would she have had for breakfast? What would she wear? What shoes would she wear? What public transport was available? So I needed to kind of feel like I knew all those answers, because otherwise it would have taken me out of the writing too much to keep stopping to look things up, and I didn't want like a manuscript littered with like, find this out, add this detail. So I did all of the research first so that I could just sit down and go and get the draft out to keep kind of the tone, the consistency, and keep the story flowing. And that just works for me. People think I'm crazy, but it works for me. And like
6 weeks is
6 weeks,
amazing.
yeah.
I don't think I've had any author come on and say, yeah, I did it in 6 weeks. That's amazing. That means that you need to belt more out.
Well, book 2's done.
Yay. And what time period are you looking at for that one?
So that one is set in 1942 in Boston. So we've moved forward a decade. We've moved to a different city. It's another historical moment in time. More strong women. That's kind of where I'm going. I like that idea of like moving through the 20th century, looking at these women, looking at what they were doing at these points in history.
I love this. I can't wait for that one. I did read that you wrote rom-coms too.
Yes. So that's where I kind of started with my writing. And I've written maybe 4 or 5, none of them been published. But that was kind of how I got into writing. And as I say, contemporary is kind of, it's easier in a way because you understand it, you know what's happening. But it was surprising to me that I didn't do historical fiction earlier, because I just love facts. I love the research process. But this is my first like stab at historical. And I just enjoyed it so much that now I'm kind of doing both, but concentrating for now on historical because it is a lot of work. The research takes up a lot of time.
So for this next one that'll be based in Boston, how long did it take you to do that research? Another 3 years or less?
Slightly less, because it's a more, I don't know how much I can say about it, but it's a very sort of defined event. So it's less. It's, the construction of a building takes months. This is about something that happens over one night, so it took less time. So you still have to do the research around, what the city looked like at that time, and like, what people were wearing, and all of those things. But the actual event research took less time. So I'd say probably about a year this time. So getting quicker.
And then how long did it take? Another 6 weeks to write it?
Yeah. I'm still editing it. The editing takes ages. The editing's the hard work. But the first draft, I love writing the first draft, and I just try and do it when I've got blocks of time to just sit and like just go and write every day.
That's amazing. I need to make blocks of time, and yet I'm not very good at it. And I'll be like, oh, I've got 10 minutes here, and then I'll get on a roll, and then I have to stop because there's something else going on. Yeah. But 6 weeks, you must just like lock yourself in. You're like, that's it.
Pretty much. That I have to know that I'm really ready to start, and I have to really like, I'll want to start, and I won't let myself until like you kind of build up kind of the energy for it, and then I just go, and then like I just won't want to stop until it's done. So it's not going to work for everybody and everybody's lifestyles, and I have to really kind of like carve out that time. But that's for me, that's how I kind of stay in the story and make sure that I just keep going till I get to the end. I just want to get it out of my head and onto a page.
I feel like before we started the recording, you said that some of your coworkers didn't know that you'd even written a book. And
No.
It's kind of a big deal. You've got 3 different countries have given you deals. It's a big book that's coming out. I feel like you have the secret life.
It does feel a little bit like that. I think because I got the deal sort of in 2023. So I've had to wait like nearly 2 years for the book to come out. And it's such an exciting thing, but you can't be excited for 2 years. Like you can't sustain it. You have to kind of sometimes go back to normal life. So having that where I'm kind of somewhere else, where I'm sort of marketing manager Gemma rather than like writer Gemma, like helps me kind of balance that, because otherwise you just kind of, I'd be a nervous wreck, I think, like waiting for 2 years for the book to come out. So I quite like having the distraction where I can go and do something else. But yeah, I definitely need to get better at telling people about it.
I just think it's funny. I feel like there's like 2 sides of you that those who know you are like, wait, what? You've got a big book coming out too? What else do you do that we don't know about?
2 lives is enough.
I love that. Are you coming over here too to promote the book? And you have to go to New York. I
Yeah, I
mean,
really, really hope so. Yeah, early next year, I'm hoping to get out, definitely. Yeah, it'll only be
yes,
my second trip to New York. I
which
don't know
is
if we
so
should tell
funny.
people that. They might like lose confidence in the book and that I knew what I was talking about. I promised you guys, I worked really hard to make sure that it was as realistic as possible.
I will vouch for you having read it. But now you need to go on the Empire State Building with your book and
Yeah,
a
that would be
whole
great.
photo op up there. Yeah, they
Yeah.
should do something for you. You're promoting it, really.
Yeah, and I think I think it makes a lot of people think about it differently. I think a lot of people have been on holiday and have been there and have been to like, the observation deck and things and like actually probably never thought for a second about the people who made that building and all the buildings really. It's like it's not really something that we think about that much, and how it was done and health and safety and how dangerous it was and all of those things that I just are crazy. There was a photographer, Lewis Hine, who took a lot of photographs of the construction. So he was doing everything the workers were doing. They were swinging him
Mm.
out on in cement buckets and things to like take the photos, and that's where a lot of the detail came from. That's I had them sort of plastered on the wall so that they gave a real sense of like the danger and the height and all of those things that I was trying to kind of capture on the page.
And you did it beautifully because, and as we go through the book, they keep mastering the stories. They finish a story and they move up floors stories, and they're getting so high that I'm like, oh, and I feel like it's all open and windy. They talk about the wind, and if you've been outside on the Empire State Building, you will feel the wind.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've also been to Chicago to what was the Sears Tower, and you can stand on the glass platform and
Yeah,
see
I've seen
down.
that. Yeah.
And so if you're thinking Empire State Building, even bigger, that's really freaky.
It is terrifying, and that I did when I was submitting the book to agents. There was one agent who read the premise and said, "Sounds great, but not for me. I'm scared of heights. I would hate it. I don't even want to read it. Good luck."
Which is so sad, funny, and yet that person missed out. So too bad. Uh,
I didn't want to give
but
her
it,
nightmares, though. To be fair.
the way you wrote it was it's so great because you do feel that knot in your stomach.
That's
So yeah,
great.
you did a
Yeah,
great job capturing
thank
it.
you.
And I wouldn't say that I liked it. I read it before bed. There's certain books that I'll read before bed, certain ones that I won't. Like nonfiction is not a before bed read. It, usually they're more
Yeah, I
boring, and I want
agree.
something that I can escape to. And yet this one, I was like, well, do I read it before bed? Because I
It's
don't
not
know what
exactly
floor we're on.
relaxing, is it?
Like, I don't want to be falling in my dreams.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So what is next for you, Gemma? You've got this, the next book is coming, but
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I am editing book two, and then I have an idea for book three. So I've started some research, and that will be in the 1950s. So moving forward again. But yeah, it's at the stage at the moment where there's a couple of ideas. I really have to lock in on one because of the amount of research involved. I can't, as much as I would be tempted to research them both. If I'm only going to end up writing one, I kind of need to decide which direction we're going in. But yeah, I think I'm just really enjoying the writing, and like I really, really hope that people, will respond to it and like Grace and kind of come on this journey with me through like the 20th century of America, seeing what women were up to.
I love it. And we have to. As an American, you should know how the Empire State Building was made. You should know what went on during the Great Depression, to get to witness this in an entertaining type of way that, lets you escape, but also lets you see what happened. I love it. It's a great way to tell a story, and you've captured it so beautifully. And I think it's even better that you're not an American. Like, you did this for us. So thank you for that. I mean, that's amazing. And I hope that people grasp that, a non-American is writing about the history of America and what our people did to build this country and to build these iconic buildings and survive. That's amazing.
It's a really odd thing because sometimes, I was asking myself the question, like, do I have any right to write this book because I'm not American? It's not my story. But then I also think sometimes it's easier from an outside perspective. Like when you live in a country, it's easier to see all the things that are wrong with it. And I think sometimes it takes an outside view to go, actually, this is amazing, and look at this, and look when this happened, and kind of just point out all the positives and all the great things. So it's nice to be able to do that.
I love that. I appreciate it so much. It's a treat to get to experience this in a different way, and to get your perspective on it. And I love the family, and you bring in the Italians and you bring in the Irish families, and because that's truly what our country is based on. It was all of these different immigrants coming in, these families, and then you get to see them all kind of melding together. And yeah, it's beautiful. I love the way you wrote it. I really enjoyed the book, and it's an absolute gift to our country.
Thank you so much. I always find that like history, it can be a bit dry, and if you try and make it entertaining and fun, I mean, if you look at the success of Hamilton, I mean, I don't think anybody
Yes.
was that interested in that story necessarily until it was set to rap music, and then it's all over the world, and people like they take it in and they understand more. And so I think there's a bit of that as well. It's like how can we make the construction of a building doesn't really sound like the sort of topic that you could write a novel about. So it's like, how do you make that exciting? How do you make it something that people will want to read and be interested in, and the characters, and just make it come alive a bit, and also just sort of honor the people because it was dangerous and people did die, and there's a line in the book, one of the characters says, we're gifting this view to the world, and that is what those people
Mm.
did.
Yes, yes. And I love that it's not just about history, it's not about badass women. There's also this huge friendship tie that is in there. There is the tie of family that is so big. And then we do get some love stories intertwined. So, you get some romance too. There's literally something for everyone tied into the book.
I think as well because it's set in such a difficult time, and the thing that gets people through a difficult time is the people around them. I think in any situation, so it's about the relationships, and like you say, family relationships, romantic relationships, friendships. Those are the things that kind of endure. People are still falling in love even if they're in the most difficult of situations, and that's kind of a beautiful thing. And I kind of wanted a bit of that in there as well.
Yes, I have to. Yeah, I liked the end. I liked you came together. It made me very happy because as you read it, you'll go, "Oh, will they? Won't they? I really hope that there's going to be a happy ending, with certain couples. They will remain nameless. Go read the book." But yeah, it's joyful and it made me very happy.
Good. No, I'm glad. Yeah, I think some of them went through a really rough time in this book. I think I deserve to give them a
Yes.
happy ending.
Yes, they deserved it. They got through a lot. Gemma, where can everyone find you? Where can they buy the book that is out today?
I think the book is available online at all like retailers, and you can find me on Instagram at Gemma_Tizzard.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for gifting us this book. It's incredible. I loved it.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been so lovely to talk to you.
I'm so grateful for Gemma's perspective on looking at the history of our country, on giving us this view from someone who doesn't live here, who hasn't lived here, and what our country has been through, what we have gotten through, how it was built, and so much more. I know that I take a lot of that for granted. And so it's nice to have this new appreciation that I was able to find in her incredible book. So I encourage you all to go buy, read, check out from the library Grace in the Empire State, because you're going to learn something and you will have a new appreciation for what people before us did to build this country that we now live in. It was such a great read, and I'm so grateful that Gemma is looking at the history of our country and writing these incredible books that we all get to treasure, not only for the historical facts, but also for the entertaining parts as well. Do yourself a favor and go grab yourself a copy.